With more on how the government is responding to GM's bankruptcy filing, we've got a couple of people who are feeling it close at home. Virg Bernero is the mayor of Lansing, Michigan, and Congressman Jim Jordan is a Republican from Ohio. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thanks.
Mayor, I'm curious from your perspective, who do you blame for what's happened at General Motors?
Well, I know that there's a lot of scapegoating going on. People love to beat up on the unions. They love to talk about the management, everybody under the sun. But I have my own unique perspective, which is free trade. I think we've had unfettered free trade, which is unilateral economic disarmament. We would never do that with the military, with our border security, but we do it with economic security. We're the only one practicing free trade. The rest of the world isn't, and consequently, it's no surprise we lose. We set up the American worker, and the American worker plays on an unlevel playing field, and it is a race to the bottom that we've put in place. And so not surprisingly, great companies like GM that are making great products better than ever before, things like the Chevrolet Malibu, the Cadillac CTS made in Lansing, Michigan, which was Motor Trend Car of the Year last year. We have the most productive citizens on the face of the planet, but yet somehow they're failing. And I say it's because the rules of the game. We're playing by one set of rules, and the rest of the world, our competitors, are playing by another, and they are eating our lunch.
But Congressman Jordan, it seems like even with the unlevel playing field, if more Americans wanted to buy GM brand cars, we wouldn't be at the point we're at today.
Well, I blame the government. I mean, now think about this. One of your previous guests said that, you know, this plan looks great on paper. Oh, really? You got the government owning 60% of the company. You got the government appointing a majority of the board. I remember the headline in the Wall Street Journal last fall when we started this whole bailout debate. The headline said, "Do you want a car built by Congress?" It's actually worse now. It's, "Do you want a car built by federal bureaucrats?" The auto task force is running this company, running the auto industry. That is the wrong direction to head. And it's policies by the government that brought us to this day. June 1st, 2000. It's the CAFE standards artificially plucked out of thin air. It's the lack of a coherent common sense energy policy, and frankly, Congress is looking to make the problem worse for manufacturing, specifically auto manufacturing, with the cap-and-trade proposal coming. So Congress has led us to this day, government has put us in this day, and now somehow today, government's going to solve this mess? That's great. I agree with the mayor.
Congressman Jordan,
do a good job.
Let's be clear here. I'm not that you're only taking the party line here, but when General Motors was sliding into bankruptcy last year, if you went to Washington, and I did go to Washington, you know what I heard a lot of representatives say was, hey, these guys are messed up. But I heard very few solutions from either side.
Look,
so what
no,
would you
our
have
side
done
had
back
solutions.
then?
Our side says don't put these artificial CAFE regulations on. Do a common sense. Remember what got us here? Last year it was $4 gas. If we had a common sense energy policy that made sense,
can I tell you what?
Cheaper gas, which Americans would buy the cars that are produced in our GM facilities.
Okay, go ahead, Mayor.
What he's really saying is just another way to say free trade. Because see, if you had CAFE standards or the new rules that they're coming out, if they applied worldwide, that would be fine. But again, you have a global economy, but yet when we put rules in place, they're only for our companies, and so they disadvantage our companies. And what's happening is the production and the pollution is going overseas. The production doesn't come back, but the pollution does. And so what we need rules. Our trade agreements should have environmental standards in them. What happens is these multinational companies, they go and they exploit the environment and they exploit the land in these other countries. They exploit the people where they can pay a lot less.
Okay, but see, gentlemen, the thing is, neither one of you is placed. I mean, you're talking about government, you're talking about unlevel playing field on free trade. Neither one of you is blaming the car makers for sclerotic bureaucracy, for bad product design.
Can I tell you why?
Sure.
Because the reality is, again, that's scapegoating. Look, we have some great cars, we had some losers. We have some greedy bureaucrats, some greedy unions, and we have some greedy corporate executives. That's the case in every other country, and that's the case in every other industry. What happened to the furniture industry, the textile industry, the steel industry? Are you telling me that we are incompetent in all of that our foreign competitors were better than us across the board?
Our high-tech industry shows we're not incompetent at all. In high-tech, we rule the world, right? So what high-tech do right that the autos did wrong?
Here's the real question. Can the government do a better job? I mean, think about this. Today's decision, exactly, that's the point. So the fact that we didn't have the right kind of policies in place in the first place brought us to this day.
Look,
I've been advocating for not having these artificial CAFE standards, having an energy policy that makes sense. That would help our auto industry. That's what we need to focus on.
Look, we got to be grateful to President Obama. He's honored his commitment. He saved the company as best he could. He inherited a mess. But the reality is, even a new GM will not be able to compete. Even a new GM will not be able to compete unless you get a level playing field, unless you get fair trade in place of free trade. We're setting up a race to the bottom. I appreciate the help. You know, I appreciate the stimulus, but the best stimulus is a stimulating job. We need to put Americans to work. We've got to put the P back in GDP.
Congressman,
President Obama just shut down 14 plants, one in the 4th Congressional District of Ohio today. If President Obama can tell Rick Wagner he can no longer be CEO, he can decide which plants stay open and which stay closed. This is a responsibility of government that led us to this day. That's why we got to get the right kind of policies in place.
Representative Jordan, Mr. Mayor, man, you talk about lighting a fuse. Let them go. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Nice
Next
job.
up, the union's take. And we're asking the question,